So the other day I had a conversation with my mom, who is born in the Soviet Union and now she's visiting me in Mexico. And I talked about how after 3 months here, I really don't want to go back to the cold March of Canada. And her reaction was, I don't get it. We literally couldn't escape winter back in Soviet Union and we were completely fine. Obviously, they couldn't escape because traveling outside of the Soviet Union was completely forbidden. Back in her day, she would get a 24-day vacation in the summer, which they would spend at this kind of sports camp. And this sports camp meant that everybody would come together of all ages. They would spend their days eating, drinking, meeting their future husbands and wives. That's actually how my mom met my dad, while slow dancing, and basically having a really great time. My mom would then tell me this was the highlight of her year. But then they would go back to their regular lives. Cold winters, gray apartments, long commutes and crowded buses, and what sounds like a really routine life. And according to her, it was still a really happy time. Now, I'm obviously not here to romanticize life under communism. That obviously wasn't better, and I really have to stress that in this political climate. However, there was something simpler about having limited choice, because that enabled you to actually enjoy the choice that you did have. That one vacation a year, that first spring day, the pair of jeans that it took you hours to get by waiting in line. And so it made you really appreciate the hell out of those jeans, really wear them and enjoy them because it was so hard to get them. Now, I know not everyone has the opportunity to work remotely like I do, to travel that much, and I'm totally aware that I live a pretty privileged lifestyle. In fact, many of you watching will say, 24-day vacation, that actually sounds pretty great. I only get 2 weeks. And I can totally relate to that. But this video is for people that are either digital nomads, are constantly in between, cannot find a place to settle down, really don't like where they live, but don't really know where to go. And if that's something that you can relate to, then please keep watching. This is actually a topic that I don't ever talk about on this specific channel, but it comes up a lot on my podcast. So if you want more deep conversations about culture and cultural nuances and moving abroad and feeling lonely and disconnected, then go check out my podcast channel where I talk to a lot of content creators, I talk to a lot of experts, and I have really interesting insights, really interesting conversations. So go check it out. So let's rewind back to 2020 when COVID hit the world. At this point, about only 5 to 8% of people were working remotely, and I was one of those people. But COVID, as we all know, completely changed that. And these days, about 50% of the global workforce has adopted some form of remote work. But what's really interesting about COVID is not just that we all went remote and we suddenly were able to travel a lot more, but the fact that it completely reshaped priorities. But it wasn't just about the remote work that made us reshape our priorities. Long days at home, an absence of social life, and completely deserted cities made us reflect, go inwards, and say, do I even want to be here anymore? What is left in the city for me? In the past, you committed to a city, a job, a routine because there were few real alternatives. Work tied you to a physical place. Your friends were there because people rarely moved. Stability was praised and expected. Today, your job can be wherever you are. You can pack up and leave at almost any point. So why stay in a soulless, expensive corporate city if you don't physically need to be there? Why not choose some place that actually fuels your soul? So for context, I went remote about 11 years ago, and I haven't looked back because I love what I do. And to be honest, I mean, it's great to have the freedom to work from anywhere I want, to have my own schedule, to not have to ask for time off. However, there's also a darker side to this, and that is the fact that when there's nothing anchoring you, there is a kind of disconnected feeling that sets in. And that's how I feel a lot of the time. And then I start questioning, why am I here? Why not somewhere else? Add to that the fact that I don't have my own family, and that's something I'll talk about later in the video, that feeling of rootlessness gets deeper. Should I be in Spain, Italy, Thailand? That kind of questioning is endless and it's paralyzing. And when you have one foot out the door at all times, you're never fully present where you are. There's a famous study called the jam experiment. So researchers set up a tasting booth, one with 6 jams, another with 24. And here's the interesting part. More people stopped at the 24 jam table, but almost no one bought anything. At the 6 jam table, fewer people stopped, but far more actually chose. Because here's the thing, more choice feels good at the moment. But that much choice also leads to paralysis. Your prefrontal cortex gets overloaded with these endless options, and that in itself triggers decision fatigue. In the end, you simply drop your hands and say, I can't decide. And of course, we see this a lot with dating apps, but not a lot of people talk about this when it comes to finding a place to live. So let's picture this scenario. You are tired of traveling and you want to settle down. So you open your social media and there it is, the overwhelm. Someone is in Spain calling it the best place to live. Someone else is on a beach in Thailand. And honestly, isn't Thailand better than Spain in the winter with its really cold apartments? Or maybe Vietnam. A friend says that Da Nang is the new place to be. And suddenly every choice is possible, which makes none of them feel right. And this gets even harder if you're a maximizer. Now, Satisfiers look for good enough. This is the friend that picks the closest restaurant, orders in under a minute, and somehow ends up happy every single time. But maximizers want the best. And that's the friend that checks reviews, cross-checks other reviews, stares at the menu like it's a live decision, and then spends the entire meal wondering if they should have gone to the other place. There is a psychology experiment that I love that explains this perfectly. A photography professor split up his class into two groups. One group had to submit their photos by a deadline. Once they sent them in, that was it. No changes, no revisions. They had to commit. Now, the second group didn't have to submit anything final. They could keep their photos, keep tweaking them, improving them, right up until the end. At the end of the semester, something interesting happened. Even though the quality of the photos was pretty much the same, the group of students that were asked to commit were actually much happier with their work. Now, the students that had endless freedom were more anxious and less satisfied, not because their photos were worse, but simply because they never let go of the idea that something better was possible. And that's exactly what happens to the brain when we start choosing a place to live. Commitment changes how the brain works. When you sign paperwork, build routines, invest in a place, your mind stops scanning for better options and starts creating meaning out of what's already there. So a great example of this is a friend of mine who moved to Spain and she rented an apartment for 5 years. Now, when I asked her, I said, that's a long time to commit to an apartment. She said, look, if something happens and I want to bail, I'm forced to commit and make it work. It kind of reminds me of marriage, because when you're married, it's a lot more hassle to get divorced than if you are just living together and you could just pack up your belongings and leave. That's essentially what happens when you rent a place for 5 years, right? You commit to that place. Or when you buy a place, then you have to make it work no matter what. And that, when everything gets tough, when you're not satisfied, that makes you think, okay, well, I've already committed. Can I make the best out of this? Because remember, when everything is optional, your brain never fully switches modes. You stay in evaluation instead of attachment. You constantly compare, and you always have an exit in mind. Maybe this January, you told yourself that this is the year that you finally change your life. You finally take action, make things happen, and you become a better version of yourself. And now, a month later, the drive isn't quite there anymore. The excitement fades, and you slowly start slipping into your familiar habits. And believe me, I've been there more times than I can count. And it wasn't because I was stupid or lazy or whatever we like to say to ourselves in those moments. It was because I was putting so much pressure on myself to change everything. And now I know that's not sustainable and it leads to burnout. What makes your life different isn't some dramatic overhaul, I'm gonna change everything. It's sticking to a few small habits consistently. As James Clear says in his book, The Atomic Habits, every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. And if you can get 1% better each day for 1 year, you'll end up 37 times better by the time you're done. For me, one of those habits has been going to the gym and listening to interesting podcasts when I was there. I figured if I'm already training my body, I might as well train my mind. And another habit I'm planning to start this year is therapy. Now, keep in mind, I've been putting off therapy for years. Growing up with Russian parents, therapy has always been seen as ridiculous and overindulgent. It was like, why don't you just talk to your friends or family about this problem? Or, you don't have enough problems to even go to therapy. What are you going to talk to them about? Or, so-and-so went to therapy for a few months and it didn't work. Imagine someone said this about the gym. They went to the gym for a few months and they're still not ripped. Shocker. What people don't realize about therapy is essentially the gym for the mind. And just like the gym, it's not about fixing your problems overnight. It's about talking things through before they pile up. It's about understanding your patterns. It's about understanding why you keep ending up in the same places, emotionally, relationally, geographically. And if you're lost about where you want to be, having that space to talk it through without the judgment and biases of your friends and family is huge. That's why today's paid partner is BetterHelp. BetterHelp makes therapy feel a lot less intimidating and a lot more doable, especially if, like me, you travel a lot and don't want another logistical nightmare. You do sessions online from wherever you are, and you get matched up with a credentialed therapist based on what you're actually dealing with, not some generic checklist. And the really great thing is, if you don't feel like it's a right fit, you can switch your therapist at any time with no extra cost. Head to betterhelp.com/datingbeyondborders for 10% off your first month of therapy with our paid partner, BetterHelp. Because remember, real change doesn't come from some huge reset. It comes from small, consistent support over time. So I remember I was flying to Mexico a few years back, and I was sitting on the plane with this Canadian couple. And when I'd asked them how long they were going for, they said, actually, we have a really long vacation this year. We're going for 10 days. Now, when they asked me how long I was going for, I said 6 months. And their face kind of said everything. And it made me realize just how much my sense of what is normal has shifted over the years. And this is, by the way, something I see a lot with digital nomads and something I kind of see with myself as well. What happens is your baseline changes. Novelty becomes your normal. And when that happens, then novelty stops being special. Novelty gives your brain a hit of dopamine. New people, new sounds, new languages, new countries. Everything feels sharper, more alive, but your brain quickly adapts. What once felt extraordinary now feels normal, and your brain is still looking ahead going, okay, what's next? Where's my next hit of dopamine? What we call the honeymoon period is actually your brain adjusting to a new baseline. And that's where commitment plays such a huge role, because if you'd already invested into making this place work, you're going through the visa process, you're getting an apartment, you're building relationships, that first sign of discomfort isn't going to be the first sign to leave. But if you haven't, then that first great day or a really bad date or feeling lonely is going to make you go, should I go somewhere else? But it's not just you. If you surround yourself with the type of people that also have a higher baseline, then what happens is you start comparing yourself against those people. So just as an example, you're having a really great day, and let's say you're in Italy, but someone turns to you and says, yeah, this is a nice beach. You know what though? I was just in the Philippines and the beaches are amazing and it's way cheaper. And I'm thinking of heading there very soon. Because honestly, I feel like Italy is just not it for me. And even though you were enjoying your day just a few minutes ago, suddenly you start to think, am I missing out? And suddenly, the present moment starts to feel like settling. So I have to be very honest with you guys. From the outside, my job looks like it's so much fun. I'm constantly traveling and talking to people and meeting new people and having these interesting conversations. But the truth is, a lot of times I feel really lonely. And the older I get, the more I feel that loneliness. I think a lot of us are really disconnected these days. I'm probably to blame because I don't touch base with a lot of people, or maybe I don't force myself out of my house enough to go and socialize. I put my job first. But the point remains that loneliness has become a real epidemic in our society, and I'm a real part of it. And if you look at the data, it's actually pretty shocking. Over the years, the amount of people that say that they have no friends at all has risen dramatically. And what surprised me, it's not the teenagers or the elderly people who report feeling the loneliest. It's people in their 30s and 40s, which is, by the way, the bracket that I fall into. But it makes sense because more and more of us are single. Fewer and fewer people are having kids. We used to live in tight communities by default, but now communities are something that you have to actively build and maintain on top of everything else. And add remote work to that, and the isolation really gets real. And I've worked remotely for years. Again, I love what I do. I'm really happy with my job. I used to be a teacher, and that involved a commute, going to work, having a place to work, having those colleagues, having those conversations. So even if I wasn't feeling social that day, I was forced out of my house to have real life conversations, not the ones that I have on Zoom or Riverside, real life conversations. And so essentially when I would get home, I would feel that even if I didn't do anything else that day, I was out and about and I was meeting people and I was having those social interactions. But now if I spend the whole day in front of my computer, I literally have to force myself out in order to interact with people. And here's the strange part. The more you are alone, the more you want to stay that way. You would think that loneliness would urge you to come out of the house, go be social, go feel less lonely. But the truth of the matter is that we lose those social skills and we actually start adapting to being on our own. And some extreme cases of that are in China, where people don't even get out of their bed. They just sit in their bed and they scroll through their phones the entire day. And people watching that on TikTok say, oh, lucky you, how great for you. You just stayed in bed the entire day. And so what happens? You lose those social skills. You no longer want to be around other people and you become a sort of a hermit. So what does that mean for rootlessness? Well, if you don't have any close friends, if you don't have a family, if you don't have kids, if you don't have a partner, then there's nothing really rooting you to a place. There's nothing anchoring you. There's no one watching you leave, and there's no one waiting for you to come home. And that kind of freedom can feel great. Like, don't get me wrong. If you are watching this and you have 2 kids that are screaming for you all day long, all you want is freedom. And there is a really wonderful part about freedom, about being able to take off and go anywhere. But there's also an emptiness that comes with it. Like, you can be anywhere, which a lot of times feels like you're nowhere. And even when you're in that new place and you're actively trying to meet new people, the other issue is those people are probably as transient as you are. You form friendships quickly, but then someone leaves, or you do. So even surrounded by people, there's this quiet awareness that nothing is very stable. Everyone is a little half in, half out. And that's what feels rootlessness, because even if the place is perfect on paper, if everyone is temporary, then the place starts feeling temporary too, because home isn't just where you are physically, it's about who stays. What is happiness? Well, we asked this question a lot more than previous generations ever did. And that's because happiness for them was a byproduct of living their life. It was about simple things: building a family, coming home after a long day at work, getting that big promotion. Today, we are hyper-focused on happiness. We expect to feel good 24/7, and if we don't, then we assume that we're doing something wrong. But what happiness is in many ways is the gap between expectations and reality. And that's why my mom was so happy with her life, because her expectations matched the type of world that she was living in. And when your expectations are sky high, it's kind of hard to live your regular life with those expectations in mind. Say it's raining outside, or it's snowing outside, or you're just having a really bad day. Well, if your expectation that I've seen this and I've been there and life could be much better than this, it's really hard for you to sit with the not so glamorous parts. And unfortunately, as much as I believe that we should be pursuing things that make us happy, a lot of times life just is. It just is routine. It's not that exciting. And feeling like it should be better than this is making us more and more unhappy. The 2 truths I've learned from talking to expats about this are: number 1, no place is gonna be perfect, just like no romantic partner is gonna be perfect. The question is, what most imperfections feel like home or feel the most livable to you? And the second one, it's not just about the place. And sure, if you live in Manhattan and have always wanted to live in the mountains by the nature, then the chances are that you're not going to be in your element. You're not going to be enjoying your life that much. Or if you're a very outspoken person and you live in Finland and you feel like, hey, Finland kind of limits me in the way I show up, then yes, your environment of course influences the way you show up. But just as often it's about people. It's about the friendships you build. It's about the routines you create. And yes, the partner that allows you to create something that feels like home, something steadier, more peaceful. Because here's the thing, when you have meaningful relationships in a place, belonging comes a lot more easy. Believe me, I've been deeply lonely and deeply unhappy in the places people only dream of. So I know what I'm talking about. I don't think it's about choosing one perfect place, because I don't really think that exists. However, I also think that choosing one imperfect place and staying long enough for it to push back, or long enough for routines to form, or for people to start mattering, for responsibility to slowly turn into belonging, is equally important. I'd actually really love to hear from you. Are you currently dealing with a sense of rootlessness? Or have you managed to find a place that feels like home? And what helped you get there? Please let me know in the comments below. And of course, if you like this type of video, if you want to see my insights on cultural nuances, on big subjects, then please let me know below. I feel like I've been doing this for so many years that I have a lot to share. And if you want to see more, comment below. Until next time, and as usual, keep breaking down your barriers.